distinguished guests, as acting Chancellor, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Western. Before we proceed with the ceremony, I would like to call on Dan and Mary Lou Smoke to provide an Indigenous welcome.
Where I come from, when we greet one another, we say bonjour, so bonjour. Asanyenas kwe indejnakas, makwa dodem, bachuana bay dunjaba. Ready to try that? For those of you who don't speak Canadian, I'm going to translate what I said in the original Ojibwe language that has been spoken in this land that we call Turtle Island for over 10,000 years. I said that my name is Shooting Star Woman. I'm Bear Clan. I originally come from Bachuana Bay, Ontario, which is on beautiful Lake Superior. And I'm very honored to be here today, standing beside my husband of 42 years. We've been together for close to half a century, and we have sat with many elders, and we have been taught many things by the elders, and so now it's our turn to start sharing what they have taught us, and so that's why we came here to be with you all. So I'm going to let Dan introduce himself.
Where I come from, we say Sego, so Sego. Asanyenas Indishnakas, Kildare Dodem, Six Nations, Grand River Dinjiba. So I'm a member of the Seneca Nation. My name is Asanyenas. I come from the Kildare clan of the Six Nations Grand River Territory. I'd just like to say a few words about the Eagle Staff. The Eagle Staff is the first flag of Turtle Island. It's a flag that precedes the ceremonial mace of Western University. It precedes the flag of the City of London. It precedes the flag of the Province of Ontario. It precedes the flag of Canada, the flag of the United Kingdom, the Union Jack, as well as the fleur-de-lis. So this is the first flag. It's our flag that leads the way. It's the Oshka Bewis, Oskapio. It's the helper of ceremonies, is what we call him, her. The Eagle Staff skirt adorns the shaft, which is the male, so the female and the male come together to take care of all of us. It's a ceremonial flag that looks after all peoples who are here on Turtle Island at this time. So we just wanted to say a few words to acknowledge the first flag.
Coach Dan. We came to sing a song as part of the opening ceremony, and I also came to thank some people who were instrumental in helping us get here to help out with the ceremony. I'd like to thank Candace Burnett-Debosky, who's back here, and Paula Hedgeworth, who is an amazing woman who helped us with all kinds of things today, Kathleen Kwan, Melanie Harvey, Angie Mandage, and everybody else that we met today has just been fantastic. We want to sing a song that Dan and I used to dance to in the 70s. Every time we heard this song in Toronto, where we started out dating in Toronto. And they would have social dances, and this song would be played by the Iroquois people, and we always got up to dance to this song. Hi-ya-ho.
So we'd like to say Bien de Gain to all of you. Welcome to this ceremonial occasion today. We'd just like to also acknowledge the reason we're here for the incoming investiture, installment, and induction ceremony for the incoming President, Alan Shepard, and the incoming Chancellor, Linda Hasenfratz. So we just want to acknowledge how honored we are to help take part with our own ceremonial protocol included in the ceremony today. So we just want to acknowledge that at this time, we sit on the territory of the Atawandrian people. This is the territory where the dish with one spoon was created as a covenant for all of us to live in harmony, in benevolence, to look after one another, and the Treaty of the Dish with One Spoon. The Haudenosaunee language family, the Algonquian language family, and so right in this territory, the Chippewas, Ojibways of Thames River, the Oneidas, Oneonta-Ak of Thames River, and the Lenni Lenape of the Munsee Delaware Nation have also been living here in a spirit of coexistence. So we want to just acknowledge the original people who lived here since 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, and we want to acknowledge that the dish with one spoon, the spirit of that treaty, is still alive amongst the Indigenous peoples. We still honor that covenant that we have with each other. And then after the dish with one spoon were a number of British colonial treaties that have pretty much taken over most of this territory of the Great Lakes watershed. So we just wanted to acknowledge that, and we also wanted to acknowledge that we are now in the time of the falling leaves moon. The grandmother moon began to show her face last week, and when she does, she looks after all female life. And she also looks after the water. She actually recycles the water, so she's purifying the water. The water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth. It's that feminine, sacred element of life that all creation needs in order to survive. Nothing would survive without the water. The water is still following her sacred instructions, and our grandmother moon is still following her sacred instructions. And with the falling leaves, they're not dying. What they are doing is they are falling off the trees. Well, before they do, the trees put on their makeup, because Mother Earth is getting ready to go to sleep, because she's worked hard for us. She's provided us with a harvest, and she's now providing us with the hunt. Right now, in many of our hunting societies, they're out hunting. So we want to acknowledge that our Mother Earth works very hard for us. So she needs her balance, so when the winter solstice arrives, she will be going to sleep. And she would be going to sleep underneath her sheets of leaves. They will be her leaves, their sheets, and then underneath her blankets of snow. And she will get her rest, so that when the next cycle of creation begins, the thunder moons will wake up the earth, shake it awake. So with that, we just want to share. In closing, we welcome everybody, and we are so happy to be here. Chimigwech, Niawe, all my relations, in the spirit of our ancestors. Hi, hi.
Oh, Matakawasan.
Today's ceremony is a special celebration of the installation of Linda Hasenfratz as the 23rd Chancellor and of Alan Shepard as the 11th President and Vice-Chancellor of this great university. We will first install our new Chancellor. The office of the Chancellor is a very important one. Our Chancellor serves as a spokesman for the values and the inspirations of the university, and as a model of the community leadership for our students, faculty, staff, and alumni. Linda the Western community is deeply honored to welcome you as our new Chancellor. As part of these celebrations, we are delighted to have so many friends and distinguished visitors joining us this afternoon. And I wish to welcome members of our new Chancellor's family, in particular your husband Ed, your father Frank, and other friends and family members. We're pleased that government officials, members of our Board of Governors, the Alumni Association Board, the Senate, and affiliated university colleges, as well as representatives from other Canadian universities, colleges, organizations, and community members have joined us on this day of celebration. I will now call on Mr. Paul Jenkins, Chair of the Board of Governors, to announce the election of the Chancellor and to administer the declaration of election and oath of office.
Will the Chancellor-elect please rise? In accordance with the University of Western Ontario Act, the Electoral Board, meeting in duly constituted session, elected Linda Hasenfratz as Chancellor of the University for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. Linda is a proud Western alumna and honorary degree recipient. After graduating from Western in 1989, Linda worked for a pharmaceutical company before joining the family business, Linamar Corporation. Wanting to learn all aspects of the company, she worked in many roles, including as a machine operator, general manager, COO, and president. She received her MBA from the Ivey Business School in 1997 and became CEO of Linamar in 2002. Linda is the leader of a multinational company and was one of the 13 members of Canada's NAFTA Council. She's an advocate for women in business and engineering and an inspiration to women across Canada and around the globe. Linda has 4 children, all of whom are current students at Western and one of whom will graduate from Western on Friday. Her father, Frank, who founded Linamar, is also an honorary doctorate recipient. As a donor, volunteer, and now Chancellor, Linda has demonstrated her passion for Western and commitment to post-secondary education. We are honored to install Linda Hasenfratz as Western's 23rd Chancellor. It's my great pleasure to administer the Pledge of Office. Do you, Linda Hasenfratz, pledge yourself to keep and preserve well and faithfully during your term of office the statutes, liberties, customs, rights, and privileges of the university, and to promote its well-being and that of its members insofar as you are able?
I do so pledge myself.
Thank you, Linda.
As acting Chancellor of this university, I now install you, Linda Hasenfratz, in the office of Chancellor, and by virtue of the authority vested in me, I charge you with the responsibilities pertaining to the office. I will now ask the Secretary of the Senate to robe you in the official gown of the Chancellor of the University of Western Ontario.
All rise.
Madam Chancellor, I hereby present to you the ceremonial mace of the university, and I ask you to accept it as the symbol of your authority.
I accept the mace, and I ask you to place it in its position before me.
Please be seated.
On behalf of all assembled here today, it is my pleasure to invite Chancellor Linda Hasenfratz to address us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is with great pleasure that I step into the role of Chancellor at the University of Western Ontario today. As you've heard, I have a long history with this institution from my days as an undergrad in the late 80s. I shouldn't admit that because you'll know how old I am. In the chemistry program to my days at Ivy achieving my MBA 10 years later. And as you've heard today, all four of my children are here or have already pursued a degree here at Western. I feel like I've just learned so much from Western, academically, of course, but also in terms of how to approach learning, how to create balance in my life to manage everything that was happening, and the importance of critical thinking and data-based decision-making. I think in today's world of nonstop information flow, these lessons have really never been more important. Today's rapidly changing world, driven by the enormous speed of technological change, means that we've never needed our educational institutions more. I feel like we are bombarded from information from so many sources. I think we have more information available to us today than we ever have in history, and yet in many ways I think we're less informed than we've ever been. It's hard to sift through all that noise to decide what's real and what's not real, and I think that's where those critical thinking skills come to play. And again, more than any time in history, I think we need to step back, question the conclusions and solutions that are being presented to us, make sure we really understand them, and conclude for ourselves what we think is right or wrong, and let that guide our actions and decisions. I believe Western will play an increasingly important role in teaching young people how to approach this new world of information overload and change in a balanced, fact-based, end-to-end and holistic way. So since agreeing to take on this role, I've reflected a little bit on the role of the Chancellor and what I did and didn't want to get involved with here at Western. So not surprisingly, I did a little bit of research into what some other chancellors in Canada are doing. Many chancellors are choosing to get more involved in different ways, not in terms of governance, thank goodness, but more in terms of interacting with students and finding ways to inspire and to reach them. I love the idea of doing that and finding a way that I can connect with students and bring some of my own experience and thinking to the table to help challenge them and challenge the way that they think. I've always enjoyed connecting with students. I find I frankly learn a lot from them, maybe even more than they're learning from me. They always have great questions that make me think a little differently and challenge my own decision-making and direction in a really positive way. Now, I have to admit, when Amit came first to see me to propose the idea of me taking on the role of Chancellor, I said to him that as far as I knew, most chancellors were appointed at a much later stage in life, even post-retirement. I said, either you think I'm a lot older than I actually am, which is obviously a concern, or you're trying to do something different. So he assured me it was the latter, Hopefully he wasn't just trying to make me feel better. And I did quickly come to realize that although taking on the role at a later stage in life would have the benefit of many more years of experience, I feel like taking it on, sort of mid-career can bring the added benefit of real life, real-time experience. I'm still living with challenges and opportunities every day. I'm taking real-time technology changes and using them to help create a strategy for our business for tomorrow, and finding out what works and what doesn't work. And I like the idea of sharing that sort of experience under fire with the students in some way. When I look ahead to my tenure here at Western, I think there's a lot of areas I'd love to explore and understand with Alan and understand his strategy and vision around such. As noted, empowering critical thinking, I think, is high on the list, but so are things like bringing more workplace experiences to education through co-op and internships, and exploring the benefit of the fantastic dual degree programs here at Western, which is a way that Western is really uniquely positioned in Canada. And of course, continuing to help boost the number of women in science, technology, engineering, and math, all of which are areas that I think are really important to the future of business and also the careers of our students. I also, of course, am a huge believer in the power of entrepreneurship and the role that incubators at universities can play in such. I love the fact that Western has an incubator, and I think it's absolutely a step in the right direction and a great way for students to take a great idea, take a chance on it, and be an entrepreneur. I also love the fact that I begin my tenure at the same time as our new president, Alan Shepard. There's obviously going to be change happening as Alan starts to build a vision and a plan for Western, and I'm excited to have a chance to play some small role in that. So thank you again for this honor. I'm thrilled to get started in this role with this wonderful institution that I have always called home. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. We're grateful for your commitment to Western as an alumna, volunteer, donor, and now as Chancellor. You have utilized your degrees in science and business throughout your outstanding career, and your success as a business leader is an inspiration to your fellow alumni and our students. And I look forward to your time as Chancellor and wish you every success in this new position. Congratulations.
So I'm straight to work. Distinguished guests, in my new role as Chancellor, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the installation of Professor Alan Shepard as the 11th President and Vice-Chancellor of this university. I'd also like to welcome Alan's partner, Stephen, and their 2 sons to London and to Western. Thanks to you and your friends and family for being here on this special occasion. We at Western are very proud to welcome Alan Shepard to our campus and to our university community, and to entrust to him the leadership of this great university. I call upon Mr. Paul Jenkins, Chair of the Board of Governors, to present the President and Vice-Chancellor designate and to administer the oath of office.
Will the President-elect please rise? Alan Shepard joined Western this past July after serving in leadership roles in several Canadian universities, including Guelph, Ryerson, and most recently Concordia University in Montreal, where he was President and Vice-Chancellor. Alan completed his undergraduate studies at St. Olaf College in Minnesota, and he earned his PhD in English from the University of Virginia. Included in his academic accomplishments are the publication of 3 books and numerous journal articles. As an active and committed volunteer, Alan has served a host of professional and community organizations, including Universities Canada and the Stratford Festival of Canada. Currently, he is a member of the Board of Directors of the London Economic Development Corporation and the immediate past chair of the Canadian Research Knowledge Network. Since joining Western, Alan has attended an impressive and truly impressive number of campus and community events where he's met countless students, faculty, staff, alumni, and community partners, as well as visiting a regional First Nation community in Sarnia. We are thrilled to welcome Alan in his new role and to look forward in supporting his course, leading Western in the years to come. It is now my honor to invite Alan to affirm the declaration of office as Western's 11th president. Do you, Alan Shepard, pledge yourself to perform the duties of the President and Vice-Chancellor of the University of Western Ontario as prescribed by law and by the statutes of the university, and do you promise to defend the rights and to promote the welfare of the university and members thereof? Thank you, Alan. As Chair of the Board of Governors of the University of Western Ontario, I now install you, Alan Shepard, in the office of the President and Vice-Chancellor, vesting you with the authority and charging you with the responsibilities pertaining to that office.
Mr. President and Vice-Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of the University, I welcome you. The Secretary of the Senate will now assist you with the robes symbolic of your office. I invite the President and Vice-Chancellor to sign the official register. On behalf of all assembled here today, it's my pleasure to invite Alan Shepard to offer some remarks as our 11th president.
Good afternoon. As you'll discover, Linda and I have been thinking along the same lines, but I promise you, we didn't collude in our essays. Lieutenant Governor Dowdswell, Mayor Holder, Chancellor Hasenfratz, and thank you for accepting the call to serve as our Chancellor. Members of the Board of Governors and our Chair, Paul Jenkins, members of the University Senate, distinguished colleagues from institutions of higher learning, including Fanshawe College and Western's affiliated university colleges, Huron, Brusha, and King's, the elders Dan and Mary Lou Smoke, and other representatives of the local Indigenous community, my colleagues on Western's faculty and staff, my partner Steve and our sons, our parents and sisters watching from afar, the best boss and advocate for my career I've ever had, and thank you, Sheldon. Close friends who have journeyed here to celebrate with us, and Western's students and alumni whose presence on campus makes us a university. Wow, that's a long list. Its ceremonial form comes from the tradition of public oratory and dates back centuries, and it may be outdated in our digital age. Public engagement works differently now and faster in the Twitter era. I'll come back to that point in a bit. I am for sure thrilled to be installed today as the 11th president of Western, one of Canada's leading research-intensive universities, founded a decade or so after Confederation. It's an honor to be welcomed into an academic community so rich with proud traditions, with great intellectual advances and social achievements, truly a world-class track record. And a community that strikes me as filled with bold energy, ready to build on that track record and making Western today and tomorrow even stronger, even more competitive. So thank you for participating in this celebration of the promise of a new chapter for Western. There's a lot to be proud of, and because of that, there's also a lot to do. The Western community pursues excellence, expects ambition, which is fantastic. This installation comes just after the 70th homecoming and just before convocation. Homecoming Western style was a spectacular experience for me, to see thousands upon thousands of alumni back in London, to renew friendships and reconnect with Western. And at the football games, I enjoyed seeing the Mustangs circle the field a lot. The Texans could learn something. Western graduates are deeply loyal because they've had such a powerful and transformative experience in this academic community and in this city. They are a great, great asset, more than 300,000 strong across more than 150 different countries. The alumni provide a global network that helps to extend the university's impact, influence, and reputation. And later this week, we'll welcome more than 2,600 new graduates into our alumni family, purple and proud. It's one of the greatest pleasures of university life to follow the careers of new grads as they set out to make their own marks in the world. And I'm still in touch with some of my students all the way back to the beginning of my career in Texas. Purple and proud is more than a tagline. It's shorthand to me. It expresses the joy, the beauty, the surprise, the rigor, the fun that happens as a Western student makes their way through all of the pressures and the pleasures of earning a degree here. For some, their research experiences will have mattered most. For others, their personal development, so that they are now equipped to take on the world. As far as I can see into the future, the Western experience will continue to be transformative, but the experience is likely to evolve. To quote that surprise Nobel laureate Bob Dylan, the times they are a-changin'. The mutability of life is actually an ancient idea. Indeed, and the irony of this beautiful pageantry today is not lost on me. I stand here this afternoon dressed in almost medieval church robes to deliver some remarks. But my remarks are on the bold new thinking that is needed by universities as we chart our way through the Fourth Industrial Revolution or the digital revolution, call it what you will. When I explained to a friend the dilemma of starting these remarks with the ancient formality of a public oration, in order to say something about how Western might grapple with the turbulent and fast-paced 21st century, one wag suggested to me that I put my words into rap. Maybe not. For most of recorded history, lectures have had generally unfolded in some semi-linear and digestible fashion. The hyperlinks, if they were there, were carried principally by the imagination and by the intelligence. Less so today, in the digital era, thinking itself is going to be affected. Distraction, as you know, is everywhere. At this very moment, and now I'm talking to my family, for example, you might be distracted by a smartphone in your pocket. You may be craving the dopamine spike that comes with a ping. You may be twitching to check your social media. You may even feel compelled to fact-check me on Google, which is what students do. These are all elements of the new reality. What it means to be human, how we will communicate, how we'll experience community, how we'll understand, navigate, and interact with the world. We human beings are in some uncharted territory. And it will continue with disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, virtual reality, and the melding of digital, physical, and biological systems. Things are getting really interesting. It follows then that how we learn, if not always what we learn, but probably that too, will also necessarily change. It's not a newsflash, but it's not to be ignored. These changes will have profound implications for many of us, and certainly for those who teach, research, and otherwise work inside a university, and for students. And I gotta say, I think it's a glorious time to be a student, probably the best time in half a century, maybe even more. So what are we gonna do with all this change? It'll become increasingly urgent for universities to grapple with the effects of the digital era if we want to be excellent stewards of our legacies. Simply put, we'll need to be more nimble. Bold universities will prosper when they experiment, collaborate, differentiate, maybe even obviate. Okay, now I'm rhyming, I'm not rapping. Look up obviate. Those that shy away from innovating in their academic programs, those who shy away from changing their teaching methods, those who shy away from engaging with students born into a digital world, those who are not bold enough will struggle to sustain their currency and their promise. It will otherwise for them be the slow hemorrhage of reputation, death by 1,000 cuts. There's a second irony here. Much of what counts as human progress during the past millennium, I'm thinking of life-saving technologies and medicines, of course, but also research on social issues that protect children from dangerous environments, that seek to make the world more just for everybody. Much of what counts as progress has emerged from within our universities, or at least through the ingenuity and the toil of people who studied in them. And here at Western, we have some powerful local proof points. Now, it's always risky for a leader to name a handful of representative successes, keeping in mind that we have thousands of researchers who've worked here over the years. So I'll just mention a couple. But take the first cobalt bomb cancer treatment, which doubled the survival rate for early-stage cervical cancer patients. Major transplant surgeries, much of the transplant research done right here in London. And the HIV vaccine work that's being done today. And the discovery of natural surfactants from a cow's lung that will help premature infants breathe and survive, saving millions of babies across the planet. And the pioneering test lab to engineer many of the world's largest wind-sensitive structures, still here at Western. And our Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children, established 30 years ago this year, following the murder of young women engineers at École Polytechnique in Montreal. And Canada's first French immersion program, established in 1932 at Trois-Pistoles, Quebec, still operating. And Canada's longest-running writer-in-residence program, which has attracted another Nobel laureate closer to home, the venerable storyteller Alice Munro. Western's faculty is full of talent right across all the faculties, truly distinguished. And all of us, together with our loyal staff, make up this great university team. So at Western, we have some great historical successes, and we have great teaching and research happening at this very moment, this afternoon, and we have great opportunities to come. There's a lot of reason to have big hopes for the future. There will always be a place for discovery-driven research and teaching, but for those able to collaborate, to pursue multi-institutional work, to participate in interdisciplinary research and teaching, the opportunities, I think, will be even stronger. And how we think of these opportunities, how we organize ourselves to work together, how we pull together, it'll really matter. Because if it's no good to ignore the pace of change, likewise, it's also no good to go into despair. In 2013, the then president of Stanford, John Hennessy, described the disruption facing modern research universities in apocalyptic terms. He characterized the digital revolution as a, quote, tsunami, comparing its future impact on higher education to the havoc it had wreaked upon the newspaper and music industries. He warned that universities reluctant to change would be effectively washed away. Of course, this is hyperbole. But it's not an exaggeration to say, however, that the hold universities have had on academic credentials is beginning to see its challengers. The challenges will mount. So far, for example, efforts to disrupt higher education's traditional model have had negligible to modest success. Think of your favorite academic fads. Think of MOOCs, for example. But what might happen if Google or Amazon or Microsoft truly enters the fray? They're already there, but really enters the fray. What happens if students, families, or employers at large come to believe that what we have to offer is no longer so necessary, or can be gained more quickly or more effectively? When the world moves to personalized learning, and even more online learning, what about the chestnut of deciding whether universities should be more theoretical or more practical, critical thinking versus hands-on skills? In all of these scenarios, I ask myself constantly, how can we position Western to lead and not merely to follow? How can we stand out as one of the world's top research-intensive universities where students and profs motivate each other to solve some of the world's most challenging dilemmas? How can we compete anew and differently in the digital age? A giant in the world of university leaders today, Michael Crow, president of Arizona State University, talks about the importance of making the shift within our institutions from, on the one hand, a culture of legacy to a culture of innovation. There's a lot to like about legacy, I have to admit, as someone who teaches Shakespeare and the literature of the scientific revolution. But there's a lot to love in paying a lot more attention to a culture of innovation, too. Innovation can affect the ways we research and teach Shakespeare as much as in any other discipline, from chemistry to international business to the philosophy of science. Innovation is agnostic about the academic discipline. It's about an entrepreneurial way of thinking, of seeing the world, of discovering and seizing opportunity. If you will, innovation, I think of it as kind of a first cousin to classical research. And in every academic field, there are opportunities to do things differently, to shake things up. And partly that's what's needed today. I've talked about some of the global imperatives facing Western, but before I close, it's worth remembering that all universities are deeply rooted in their local communities. I admire Western's land acknowledgement, and I thank the elders for their beautiful song this afternoon. More than mere words, the land acknowledgement seeks to inspire action towards furthering our relationships with Indigenous communities, the very communities that host us today. It's possible to honor Western's appetite to be internationally recognized as one of the world's leading universities, and at the same time, engage locally with the community that helped found us. Western owes its early survival to the City of London and the regional counties that surround our beautiful campus. About a century ago, following years of fiscal uncertainty, that's something that's constant in universities, and public debate about the merits of helping our church-founded university, London City Council saved the day in 1908. That year, a $25,000 grant to be paid over 5 years put Western on stable footing and paved the way for us to become a secular institution. More than a century later, Western and London continue in a symbiotic relationship. Every year, for example, some 600 student teachers are placed in local schools, and more than 2,000 students in nursing, medicine, dentistry, and other health sciences care for Londoners in the course of their own educations. Western students are everywhere, working with local businesses, with municipal leaders, with a thriving arts community here in London. And on campus, we're not an island. Western's challenges are often London's challenges too, and vice versa. To make Southwestern Ontario a better place, there's much more we can do together. Maybe it's on transportation to London, or the economic development of our region, or working to solve a major problem like the opioid crisis. Almost certainly there's more we can do with our partner hospitals in deepening the evidence-based healthcare of people who live here, and I hope to see greater collaboration there too. A game theorist on the Western faculty reminded me this summer that if we have to choose between competition and cooperation, cooperation generally makes winners of both parties. Finally, while it's true that we live in an ever-connected world, there's evidence we are making less time for real connections with other people. Universities that excel at the dawn of the digital age will be the ones where people make time for each other still. Time to talk, time to share ideas, time for respectful debate, the heart of academic life. Together, we can propel Western forward and upward. Or as one line of the school song puts it, I think I've got this right, high up, sky up, Western you. Okay, so I didn't sing the song to you, and you're grateful for that. But I admire its energy and its optimism. Again, I'm thrilled to serve as Western's 11th president. I look forward to working together in a bold and ambitious way to answer some of the big challenges and the extraordinary opportunities that come our way as a leading academic community in the 21st century. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Alan. Distinguished guests, as Provost, it is my pleasure to invite the official visitors representing our colleague institutions across Canada and other organizations to come forward and offer greetings to Chancellor Hasenfratz and President Shepard. The Chief Public Orator will introduce the representatives.
I'm pleased to present Barry Craig, President of Huron University College. Susan Mumm, Principal of Brescia University College. David Malloy, Principal of King's University College, and Father Mark Sargent. Cameron Anderson, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science, Western University, representing McGill University. Andrew Thompson, Chief Government Relations, University of Toronto, and David Estock, Vice President, Communications, University of Toronto. William Robbins, President and Vice-Chancellor, Victoria University. Jason Gerhard, Associate Chair, Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Western University, representing Queen's University. David Sylvester, President, University of St. Michael's College. Kevin Walmsley, President, St. Francis Xavier University. Jane Toswell, Professor, Department of English, Western University, representing McMaster University. Eileen Mercier, Chancellor, Wilfrid Laurier University. Benoit Antoine Bacon, President and Vice-Chancellor, Carleton University. Mohammed Lashami, President and Vice-Chancellor, Ryerson University. Joanne Chevalier, Vice President Advancement, University of Waterloo. Jeffrey O'Hagan, Vice President Advancement, York University. Peter Devlin, President, Fanshawe College. Roger Cote, Vice President Services, Concordia University. The Honorable Elizabeth Dowdeswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. Terence Kernahan, Member of Provincial Parliament, North London. Ed Holder, Mayor, City of London. Joanne Vanderheyden, Mayor, City of Strathroy-Caradoc. Paul Davidson, President and Chief Executive Officer, Universities Canada. Nicole Girati, Vice President, Professional and Managerial Association, Western University. And David Simmons, Past President, Alumni Association, Western University.
I would also like to invite all of you to join the new Chancellor and our new President for a reception at the Great Hall beginning immediately after the ceremony.
May I request the audience to remain at their seats for the singing of the national anthem. To conclude this ceremony, I wish to express my appreciation to all who have contributed to the success of the day. In particular, and on your behalf as well, I want to thank Dan and Mary Lou Smoke, the University of Western Ontario Convocation Brass for their magnificent performance, and their director, Professor James Mackay. I would also like to thank our singer, Bethany Haynes, and Eagle Flight, our Indigenous drummers. Please remain standing for the departure of the Lieutenant Governor, and while the academic procession leaves the hall, the installation ceremony is now adjourned.